Alright, this is Chat UTD and a bit of an any other business video in the aftermath of the Everton game and before the Crystal Palace game, looking at the team, the structure of the squad, and a few issues that are within it, but also some positives that have been occurring under Carrick, which are an improvement on what was happening previously as well. So here we go. At the moment, the front three every game is Cunha, Mbeumo and Ahmad. That's the starting front three. I imagine that's probably going to change in the next couple of games. Cunha was brought in as a left-sided 10, like an inside forward almost. So we would have Seshko, I think we were assuming at the start of the season, Seshko up front, Cunha as a 10 behind him slightly to the left, and Mbeumo as a 10 slightly to the right. Now, the shifting system doesn't necessarily negate Mbeumo's game, because if we play Seshko, for example, Mbeumo plays in his natural position, which is a right-sided winger, probably a little bit of an inverted winger, but nonetheless a left-sided winger. Right-sided winger, and that's his position. That's where he played at Brentford. Cunha at Wolves, he could play anywhere across the front four positions really, but he was really an advanced 10, I'd say. He could play up front, he could play slightly out wide. So even that inside left was a slight difference to him and what he did at Wolves. But playing as a winger, which essentially he's being asked to do, we're not playing to his strengths. And it's a question mark. He's such a good player. He's got so much potential. What do we do with him? Not necessarily this season. I think this season he'll do a job wherever he's asked. But there's a question mark on Bruno. I've said before, I'm not sure Cunha and Bruno I'm not sure the house is big enough for both of them, basically. I feel like Cunha could thrive if Bruno wasn't there. Bruno will play like he plays whoever's there with him. I don't think it bothers him particularly. But for Cunha's sake, I think Cunha, with his character, with his presence, I think he kind of has that talismanic type look about him. I think he has got that get your shoulders back, take on the responsibility for the team. Give me the ball when we're struggling and we're in tight positions or when we need to hold on to a lead. I'll take the hits. I'll get my shoulders back. I'll get my elbows out. I'll be giving it the big one at the end of the game like he was yesterday before he got subbed. That's Cunha. He's a leader. He is that talismanic go-to type figure in the team, and I think he wants that. And Bruno's 31. I think he's 32 in September. Still a fantastic player. But what do we do with Bruno in the summer? Because I think he might be in either the last year or last 2 years of his contract by the summer. And if you're going to get any money for him, you're probably going to have to sell him this summer. Do we trust Cunha to be good enough to take that mantle on? That's the question. I don't know. I haven't got an answer for it. It's a genuine question for you if you're watching. Do we trust Cunha to play in that 10 role and take on the mantle of a Bruno Fernandes? Because it's not just a case of replacing position for position. Cunha can play that number 10 all day long, but you're not replacing a Joe Average 10. You're replacing the captain of the team, the leader, the talismanic figure, the producer of goals, assists, moments of magic, digging you out of the shit, game in, game out, always pushing, always probing, always fit, always available. Time will be very kind to Bruno Fernandes. In a few years' time, people will look back at his time at United and say, that guy was absolutely brilliant. Does Cunha have that about him? And one of the options three options for me are: Bruno stays as the main guy for the next few years because he's capable of doing it. His fitness levels, unless they drop off the face of a cliff, which I don't see happening, are phenomenal. So one option is Bruno stays for the next 2 or 3 years. Cunha's there as well, and we try and find a way to fit Cunha into the team. I don't know where that is. It depends on the manager. You're not going to have a system change where you play with 2 10s. We've got too many number 10s, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. So you do that, that's one option. Second option, Bruno goes. Do we trust that Cunha's ready to take that step up? Third option, Bruno stays for another year. Cunha, what does he do in that year? Where does he play? Does he sort of, again, just develop as a Man United player, just sort of like increase his responsibility? Maybe there's times where Bruno next season in the Cups or Champions League, perhaps there's a time where he doesn't play and Cunha does play. Maybe you give him the armband for those games. Do you basically gradually increase his presence and then Bruno goes and Cunha steps in, having had 2 years at United? That's an option as well. But none of those options are ideal. None of those options are surefire things. I think that's definitely a dynamic to look out for at the moment. We had too many number 10s when we played with 2 of them. And now we're playing with 1 number 10. And you can see it's square pegs in round holes. People say that Carrick's put square pegs in square holes or round pegs in round holes. Yeah, for Ahmad, that works. But for Mbeumo and Cunha, Mbeumo's not an out-and-out striker. He can play there, but it's not really his position. One of those 3 is always going to suffer. But we've got too many number 10s. Mason Mount isn't fit at the moment and wouldn't be getting in the team anyway. I don't think now he needs to go really. But and Xerxes probably the same. But you got Xerxes, Bruno, Mason Mount, and Cunha. You got 4 number 10s. And Mbeumo isn't a number 10. He's a wide player. You got 4 number 10s, and there's only 1 that's going to play. As I say, 2 of them are massively important players in Cunha and Bruno. So we've still got that problem. On the other hand, we've only got 1 striker. And Mbeumo isn't a striker. So Mbeumo's doing a job there. Cunha could do a job there. But Seshko's coming off the bench at the moment and he's scoring goals. Seshko should be coming off the bench for me, replacing maybe a more experienced striker who comes off after 70 minutes because maybe they're a bit knackered. Even if it means going back to the days of when we were making signings like Ronaldo, Cavani, Ibrahimovic, those types of signings where it's someone who 32, 33, who comes in and starts games, maybe who's happy to have a 1 or a 2 year contract. And I'm not for going back to the way things used to be because in that regard, in that era, because that era was crap really. But I see the merit in having a striker who's 32, 33, who's not going to demand to play every single game, who's not going to want to play every minute, who could almost do a job share really with Seshko, because we've invested a lot of money in Seshko. Whether or not you think he's good enough longer term, how he's going to develop, I don't know. He's a £60 million player. We spent a similar amount of money on Hoyle and it failed miserably. But if we're going to develop Seshko, you could argue the guy should be ready. He's 22, 23, 60 million quid. He needs to play week in, week out, and he needs to learn how to play the Premier League. United don't have that cutthroat mentality. If you haven't got that, use your common sense and bring a striker in. What that creates is a further problem, because a problem and a solution. I say we need 2 players for each position. So for me, if you bring in a striker, you've then got a striker plus Seshkos is 2 for that position. You've got Mbeumo and Ahmad, who really would both want to start. I know you've got a high level of quality for the right-sided winger position. We haven't got 1 left winger, so that's a problem. You're going to have to get 2. You've got 2 10s in terms of Cunha and Bruno fighting for those positions, and then you need 2 centre midfield players to fight. At least 2 centre midfield players because Casemiro's going, but you've got Mainu and then 2 others in the centre midfield. That starts to develop a little bit of a squad then, but I think a striker is essential to this team because, as I said on the title in the match reaction, it's Seshko at the moment. It's Solskjaer. He's coming off the bench. He's scoring goals. He's really impactful in terms of that. But he played for 37 minutes last night, and we didn't put 1 cross into him. The high balls that were played from the back, it was 4 of them. He didn't win 1 of them. So he's 6'5". You've got to you've got to be utilising that. His link play isn't particularly good. I don't think his touch isn't great. His reading of the game, I don't think, is always brilliant. He makes some very good runs, in fairness, which don't always get spotted. And his finishing, it's hit and miss, in fairness. He's dilly-dallied and missed some big chances this season, but you can't argue with the fact he scored some massive goals. The jury is out on Šeško for me. We need a proper striker who's experienced, and as I say, that then solves quite a few problems if we're going to be a club that's moving towards having 2 players for each position. I do wonder if left-back's becoming a little bit of an issue at United. Luke Shaw's done really well this season playing left-sided centre-back and at times as a left-back as well. But he's predominantly played as a left-sided centre-back. He doesn't have to do as much running. He can break out of that position and give us an extra body, which I think then is almost like a bit of a novelty where you go, one of the defenders has come out, Shaw does that very well. And you know, the crowd get lifted when one of the defenders does that, and he probably feels a bit of an endorphin and a dopamine hit, thinking, "Oh, nice one, I'm getting a bit of positive feedback here." From that little inside left position when he moves forward, he's quite good at crossing from that angle. That's very different from being expected at left back to be up, down, pinging balls in from wide positions, being the decisive crosser of the ball. And subsequently, what I've seen in the last couple of games, when you really need something like that to overload against the low block, is he's just not doing it. He's not doing that. He's essentially playing like he plays when he's playing as a left-sided centre-back. If you look at his position, and I haven't seen statistics on this, but my reading of it is he plays really deep. He's playing on a push just above the halfway line, even when we're attacking. Sometimes he's making those overlapping runs, but his body's not cut out to do it. So it's not that he's shit, you know, he's terrible, Luke Shaw. And I know some fan channels don't like, well, one in particular doesn't really like him. It's not a case of that at all. Luke Shaw isn't shit by any stretch of the imagination. And if we ever played with the system with 3 at the back again, I'd put him in left centre back tomorrow. I'd put him as a left-sided centre back as 2. I think he's good enough to do that. He did that under Ten Hag. I think Luke Shaw's a really, really good football player, but his body can't meet the demands of what's necessary anymore. That's what it looks like anyway. And moving forward, particularly, I think that might be an issue. I also think that has a knock-on effect then when Cunha's playing as a left winger, because Cunha needs people to take some bullets away to go on that overlapping runs, so that he then can have a little bit more space which then becomes the inside left position, which maybe he can occupy a little bit more naturally. So that has a knock-on effect when Cunha, who's not a winger, is playing on the wing. You need that natural width to come from someone else, but we're not doing that. It means we're very solid at the back, because you've always got lots of bodies back, and maybe at the moment that's what Carrick's these are sticking plasters that Carrick's putting in place, and he's doing it very, very effectively, and we're winning games. And we're not conceding as many goals, and we look quite secure, and perhaps that's what he's thinking is, okay, first things first, let's just make sure we get these wins, let's get over the line. I've only had 6 games. Maybe moving forward, if he was to become the manager, he addresses these things, but it's if the club's got the money to do it. I think that is an issue within the team. Another issue in the team, and I know Lenny Yoro played last night, but Martinez has been playing previous to that. When Martinez has been playing, that has been, this last few weeks, Erik Ten Hag's back 4 and midfield. So there's 7 players, the back 4 and the midfield, those 2 areas of the pitch are Erik Ten Hag's team. And really, when you look at squad development and how much the squad has changed over these last 2 or 3 seasons, and the personnel within that squad, and there's injuries to De Ligt, which obviously makes a difference to that. I mean, that's a poor indictment on recruitment. It really is. The midfield is in such dire need of reinforcements and evolution, and it's not one midfielder. It's 2 or 3. I think we need 3. I think the maximum we'll get is 2, but we need to revolutionise those 2 areas of the pitch. We need fullbacks who can get up and get down. We need fullbacks who can do everything, because that's a modern day fullback. We've got a fullback on the left who can defend pretty well but doesn't attack. We've got a fullback on the right who has forays forward but doesn't ever do an awful lot, and is pretty steady defensively but not great. That isn't going to get you top four season in, season out, and be challenging in the Champions League, in the two domestic cups, and looking to have seasons where you go deep into those different competitions. I don't know. Mazraoui, I really like Mazraoui. I'm not sure he for me feels like a backup right back or a utility defender in general, rather than someone who's going to push a top right back. We need a top right back and a top left back. And we need two midfield players. As I say, those areas of the pitch is the same as when Ten Hag was here. And that's a poor indictment, as I say, on recruitment. On to some positives that are very obvious in a more general sense. The team is far, far better at the moment at taking opportunities versus the missed opportunities we had earlier in the season regarding places in the league table. Going into the game against Everton, Chelsea have dropped points, Villa have dropped points. Okay, Liverpool won, which puts a bit of pressure on us. But earlier in the season, when those opportunities presented themselves for us to get some daylight between ourselves and the team behind us, or get closer to a team who dropped points in front of us, we constantly dropped points in those situations. We couldn't put a sequence of results together, but because of how poor everybody else was, we were there or thereabouts, and we were winning enough games. We also weren't going on terrible runs of form where we were losing week in, week out. We were picking up a lot of draws, which subsequently at one point meant I think we'd won 2 or 3 out of 13, but we'd only lost 1 in that time or something daft. So we're constantly picking up points. You don't need a massive, colossal points total to be in the top 5 or 6. So that run of form that we've had under Carrick, where we've accrued an awful lot of points in those 6 games, 16 out of 18 with the games we've played, is a fantastic return. And I'm still not convinced that we're going to continue on that track. But what you can say is, up to now, we've taken opportunities. There is a mentality within the team that we're taking these opportunities when they come along. There's a togetherness, there's a strength of character, there's a robustness, there's a resilience. And subsequently, one of the other main differences is we're holding on to leads that we weren't holding on to previously. Last night's a classic example. As those corners were totting up for Everton, I'm thinking, stop conceding corners, for the love of God, we're going to concede in a minute. And we didn't. We kept defending them. They were brave, they were throwing their bodies at it. And it's great to see. The levels for me, as I mentioned in the post-match, have come down. Those basic levels, going out and engaging, not cutting corners on or off the ball, being really disciplined in every action, playing as if every duel, every passage of play is like that, depends on it. Those real sort of basic criteria, those principles we need to have, those levels we need to have, for me, they've dropped. But there is a toughness to the team that wasn't there before, because so many times earlier in the season I found myself saying these same sequence of words time and time again. Fucking hell, we're soft as shit. And I said it last season loads of times as well. Soft as shit, this team. And when we're not at the moment, we're strong. There's a harder underbelly to United, and of course that's good to see. And holding on to leads like last night, massively important. It does make you think, though, in language of football has mentioned this. What could have been this season? We finished 15th last year. This team is not in the same stratosphere as a title-winning team, but up against Forest, dropped points away from home, relegation fodder. Up against Tottenham, who were right down in the bottom reaches of the table, dropped points when we were up against them. 1-0 up against West Ham, relegation fodder at Old Trafford, dropped points. Up against Bournemouth, 3 times we had leads against Bournemouth, we dropped points. Wolves, who I know have got some decent results recently, but we're 1-0 up against them at Old Trafford, we dropped those points. 10 points. And language of football has said, away at Leeds, although we were behind, you drop points in a game like that. Home to Everton, 10 men, you lose that game. Away at West Ham, again a team that's struggling, okay, we were behind and we got back in it. If you start throwing that in, that's 17 points. But I'd say particularly those 10 points where from winning positions we've dropped points, 10 extra points on where we are now is, I think we'd be top, would we? I think we'd be top of the league. Now, if we'd have picked up those extra 10 points, I think the team would have shit themselves and dropped points in other games. I don't think we'd have the bottle to keep it going. I don't think we have the bottle to take the opportunity that's there. So it's not all an exact science. But what an opportunity this season has been for United, and we haven't been able to take it, and that's criminal. That we've, I mean, top four should be wrapped up. But we haven't had the quality to win those games, and we haven't had the game management, and we haven't had that toughness. But it is a shame because it could have been a freak season, and make no mistake, it would be a freak season. So with the remaining games, I think we've got 11 left. We're going to need to win probably another 6, I'd say, to guarantee Champions League. That's not easy. We've not won an abundance of games until Carrick's come in. We've drawn a lot of games. But we probably need to win 6 or win 4 or 5 and get a few draws, which would probably be a little bit more likely. Maybe we'll do even better than that. It's the first time I've said this out loud. We should finish in the top 4 now. Which, if you'd have said to me at the start of the season, United will finish in the top 4, I'd have snapped your hand off. I said if we finish in the top 6 and we win a trophy, we swam the channel. And we're not won a trophy, but I was thinking top 6, I meant 6th, really. So if we finish 2 places higher than that, but we don't win a trophy, you take it. It's a really good season comparative to last season. It's not where ultimately Man United should be. It's a terrible league this year. The quality of football's awful. But who cares? You get in the top 4. But we have to just be careful because we've finished in the top 4 at several different points in these last few years and thought it was the opening of a door to a bright new dawn. And that's where the problem is. You have to trust then a board to give that manager, us as fans, what we need to utilise the opportunity that's in front of us and become a team that regularly finishes in the top 4. The volume of games we play goes up significantly next season, regardless of which European competition we're in. We're struggling at the moment to complete a game because we're having to play the same midfield and we can't make any subs. And the fullbacks, as I say, massively need looking at. We've got one striker who tends to be a sub who comes on. That's with 1 game a week. So if we get Champions League, fabulous. But the volume of work that needs to be done in the summer to make sure that's an advantage rather than a disadvantage to next season is enormous. Have we got a board capable of doing that in a World Cup summer where it's notoriously difficult to get signings done? I don't think we have. We finished 3rd under Ten Hag, we finished 8th the season after. We finished 2nd under Mourinho, we finished 6th the season after. We finished 2nd under Solskjaer, we finished 6th the season after. We were champions under Ferguson, we finished 7th the season after. It's not easy because often what this board do is think, well, I don't know what the big fuss is about. There's no big problem here. We've just finished in the Champions League positions. So it's happy days. We don't need to do loads of work in the transfer window. What are people going on about? That tends to be what this board, and I say this board, it's been the Glazers previously. The Ineos don't strike me as being that different. I don't see them as being particularly strategic. If they were, they'd have bought at least 1 midfield player in January, and they didn't. Maybe they couldn't because of financial fair play. Whatever, whether it's intentionally or not, this board, this club, with the owners we've got, cannot operate in the transfer market to the level that we need to. So we need at least, we need 8 players in the summer. Non-negotiable, we need 8 players. We're not going to get it. So if I then bring that down even slightly, I'd say at least we need 5 or 6. I think we'll get 3 or 4. It's not even anywhere near enough because really, by rights, Xerxes should go, Mount should go, Casemiro will go, and Ugarte should go. So all you're doing is replacing 4 that's already there. You're not even improving the numbers of the squad. And that's a big issue moving forward. But that's a more mid-term problem. Short-term, these are my observations. Some of them are more mid-term observations, to be honest with you. But short-term, we've just got to keep winning games, get ourselves over the line. Carrick's doing a stand-up job in that regard at the moment. And long may that continue. Glazers out.